Aileen Carol Wuornos, originally Aileen Pittman, and born on February 29, 1956, passed away on October 9, 2002. She gained notoriety as an American serial killer. During the span of 1989 to 1990, while involved in street prostitution along Florida's highways, she took the lives of 7 of her male customers through shootings and robberies. Wuornos asserted that she acted in self-defense, citing instances where her clients had either raped or attempted to rape her. 6 of the murder charges led to death sentences. Ultimately, on October 9, 2002, she was executed via lethal injection after enduring more than a decade on death row in Florida. Wuornos's narrative, spanning from her initial murder to her execution, found its way onto the silver screen in the movie Monster, 2003. Charlize Theron's portrayal of Wuornos in the film earned her the Academy Award for Best Actress. Early life, Aileen Carol Pittman, later known as Aileen Wuornos, entered the world on February 29, 1956, in Rochester, Michigan. Her mother, Diane Wuornos, born in 1939, was merely 14 years old when she tied the knot with Aileen's father, Leo Pittman, who was 18 years old, born in 1936, on June 3, 1954. Aileen's older brother Keith came into the world on March 14, 1955. However, the marriage between Diane and Leo lasted for less than 2 years, and just a couple of months before Aileen's birth, Diane, now 16 years old, initiated divorce proceedings. It was at this age that Diane gave birth to Aileen. Wuornos's father was never acquainted with her. Leo Pittman was later sentenced to life imprisonment for kidnapping and sexual assaulting a 7-year-old girl. Pittman received a diagnosis of schizophrenia and ended his own life by hanging while in prison on January 30, 1969. In the month of January 1960, when Wuornos had nearly reached the age of 4, Diane left her kids, entrusting them to their maternal grandparents, Lori and Britta Wuornos. Both Lori and Britta were struggling with alcoholism. They took legal custody of Keith and Aileen on March 18, 1960. By the age of 11, Wuornos began engaging in sexual activities in school in exchange for cigarettes, drugs, and food. She had also engaged in sexual activities with her brother. Wuornos said that her alcoholic grandfather had sexually assaulted and beaten her when she was a child. Before beating her, he would force her to strip out of her clothes. In 1970, at age 14, she became pregnant, having been raped by a family friend. On March 23, 1971, Wuornos delivered a baby boy while residing in a facility for unmarried mothers. Subsequently, the child was put up for adoption. Several months following her son's birth, she left school, coinciding with her grandmother's passing due to liver failure. At the age of 15, Wuornos was expelled from her grandfather's residence, leading her to establish a makeshift home in the woods close to her former abode. Her financial sustenance during this period came from engaging in prostitution, early criminal activity. At the age of 18, on May 27, 1974, Wuornos was apprehended in Jefferson County, Colorado, for driving under the influence, DUI, disorderly conduct, and discharging a .22 caliber pistol from a moving vehicle. Subsequently, she faced additional charges for failing to appear in court. In 1976, Wuornos traveled to Florida through hitchhiking and encountered Louis Gratz Fell, a 69-year-old yacht club president. Their marriage transpired rapidly and was even featured in the society pages of the local newspaper. However, Wuornos consistently engaged in altercations at a nearby bar, leading to a brief jail stint due to assault. She also attacked Fell with his own cane, prompting him to obtain a restraining order against her merely weeks after marrying. Wuornos then returned to Michigan, where she was arrested on July 14, 1976, at Bernie's Club in Antrim County's Mansalona. The charges involved assault and disturbing the peace for throwing a cue ball at a bartender's head. On July 17th, her brother Keith passed away due to esophageal cancer, leaving Wuornos with a $10,000 life insurance payout. Shortly thereafter, Wuornos and Fell annulled their marriage on July 21st, a mere 9 weeks after the wedding. In August 1976, she was fined $105 for drunk driving, which she paid using the money from her brother's insurance. However, she spent the remainder on extravagances within a couple of months, including a new car that she subsequently wrecked. At the age of 22 in 1978, Wuornos attempted suicide by shooting herself in the stomach, marking her 6th suicide attempt between the ages of 14 and 22. Her criminal record continued as she was arrested on May 20, 1981, in Edgewater, Florida, for robbing a convenience store at gunpoint, stealing $35 and 2 packs of cigarettes. She was convicted on May 4, 1982, and released from prison on June 30, 1983. However, her criminal activities persisted as she was arrested on May 1, 1984, for attempting to pass counterfeit checks at a Key West bank. Subsequently, on November 30, 1985, she was implicated as a suspect in the theft of a revolver and ammunition in Pasco County. Further arrests followed. On January 4, 1986, she was apprehended in Miami for car theft, resisting arrest, and obstructing justice by providing false identification. Law enforcement officers discovered a .38 caliber revolver and ammunition in the stolen vehicle. Then, on June 2, 1986, Volusia County deputy sheriffs detained Wuornos after a male companion accused her of brandishing a gun in his car and demanding $200. She was found in possession of extra ammunition, and a .22 pistol was discovered under the passenger seat she had occupied. In 1986, at the age of 30, Wuornos met Tyria Moore, a 24-year-old motel maid, at a gay bar named Zodiac in Daytona Beach. They chose to live together, with Wuornos financing their lives through prostitution earnings. On July 4, 1987, both Wuornos and Moore were detained by Daytona Beach police at a bar, following allegations of assault and battery involving a beer bottle. On March 12, 1988, Wuornos accused a Daytona Beach bus driver of assaulting her, claiming that he had pushed her off the bus after a confrontation. Moore was listed as a witness to the incident. Wuornos later expressed at her trial that her feelings for Moore were indescribable and intense. Even before her execution, Wuornos asserted that her love for Moore remained steadfast. Homicides. Wuornos committed the killings of 7 men within a span of 12 months. Her first victim was Richard Charles Mallory, a 51-year-old owner of an electronics store in Clearwater. The murder occurred on November 30, 1989. Wuornos asserted that Mallory had subjected her to physical abuse, rape, and forced sodomy after driving her to an isolated area under the pretense of seeking sexual services. Wuornos claimed self-defense as the reason for killing Mallory. Subsequently, it was discovered that Mallory had a prior conviction for attempted rape in Maryland. Mallory's abandoned vehicle was located 2 days after the murder by a deputy sheriff in Volusia County. On December 13th, Mallory's lifeless body was found in a wooded area several miles away. Autopsy results revealed that he had been shot multiple times, with 2 bullets to his left lung being the cause of death. The next victim, David Andrew Spears, aged 47 and a construction worker from Winter Garden, went missing on May 19, 1990. His naked body was discovered on June 1, 1990, along US 19 in Citrus County. He had suffered 6 gunshot wounds inflicted by a .22 caliber pistol. Charles Edmund Karskaden, 40 years old and a part-time rodeo worker, met his demise on May 31, 1990. His body, bearing 9 gunshot wounds from a .22 caliber weapon, was found on June 6, 1990, in Pasco County. The body was badly decomposed and wrapped in an electric blanket. Wuornos was observed in possession of Karskaden's vehicle, and she had also pawned a gun identified as belonging to Karskaden. Peter Abraham Seams, a retired 65-year-old merchant seaman, departed from Jupiter, Florida for Arkansas in June 1990. His vehicle was located on July 4, 1990, in Orange Springs, Florida. Both Moore and Wuornos were witnessed abandoning the car, and Wuornos's palm print was identified on the interior door handle. Unfortunately, Seams' body was never recovered. Troy Eugene Burress, a 50-year-old sausage salesman from Ocala, Florida, was reported missing on July 31, 1990. His body was discovered on August 4, 1990, in a wooded area along State Road 19 in Marion County. He had suffered 2 gunshot wounds. Charles Richard Dick Humphreys, aged 56, had a notable background as a retired U.S. Air Force major, former state child abuse investigator, and former chief of police. His murder took place on September 11, 1990. The following day, his body was found in Marion County. He had been shot 7 times in the head and torso. His car was subsequently found in Suwannee County. The last victim, Walter Geno Antonio, aged 62, held professions as a trucker, security guard, and reserve police officer. His nearly nude body was discovered on November 19, 1990, close to a remote logging road in Dixie County. He had sustained 4 gunshot wounds. His vehicle was located in Brevard County 5 days later. Arrest and trial. On July 4, 1990, Wuornos and Tyria Moore left victim Peter Seam's car behind after an accident. Rhonda Bailey, an eyewitness to the incident, informed the police about 2 women involved, sparking a subsequent media campaign to locate them. Authorities discovered some of the victims' possessions in pawn shops. A fingerprint of Wuornos found on a pawn shop receipt matched the print found in Seam's car. Wuornos's fingerprints were on record due to her prior criminal history in Florida. On January 9, 1991, Wuornos was apprehended at the Last Resort Biker Bar in Volusia County, ostensibly due to an outstanding warrant under the name Lori Grody. Moore was located the following day in Pittston, Pennsylvania. In exchange for immunity, Moore agreed to extract a confession from Wuornos. Moore returned with the police to Florida, staying at a motel and making orchestrated phone calls to Wuornos under police guidance. On January 16, 1991, Wuornos confessed to the murders, asserting self-defense against men she claimed had attempted to rape her. In November 1991, a 44-year-old woman named Aileen Wuornos legally adopted Wuornos after seeing her photo in a newspaper. On January 14, 1992, Wuornos stood trial for the murder of Richard Charles Mallory. Despite the general inadmissibility of prior convictions, Florida's Williams rule allowed the prosecution to introduce evidence of her other crimes to establish a pattern of illegal conduct. On January 27, 1992, Wuornos was found guilty of Mallory's murder with the aid of Moore's testimony. During her sentencing, defense psychiatrists attested to Wuornos's mental instability, diagnosing her with borderline personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder. 4 days later, she received a death sentence. During the trial, Wuornos's defense attempted to present evidence about Mallory's prior conviction for attempted rape and his time in a maximum security correctional facility for sexual offenders. These records indicated Mallory's sociopathic tendencies and treatment history. However, the judge refused to admit the records as evidence or grant a retrial based on Wuornos's request. On March 31, 1992, Wuornos pleaded no contest to the murders of Charles Richard Humphreys, Troy Eugene Burress, and David Andrew Spears, expressing a desire to seek redemption with God. In her statement, she acknowledged that Mallory had raped her violently, but the others had not. On May 15, 1992, Wuornos was sentenced to 3 more death penalties. In June 1992, she pleaded guilty to killing Charles Edmund Carskaddon. Another death sentence followed in November 1992. In February 1993, Wuornos admitted to the murder of Walter Geno Antonio, resulting in yet another death sentence. No charges were brought for the murder of Peter Abraham Seams due to the absence of his body. In total, Wuornos received 6 death sentences. Wuornos offered varying and contradictory narratives about the killings. Initially, she claimed that all 7 men had assaulted her or attempted to while she worked as a prostitute. Later, she retracted the self-defense explanation, asserting that she murdered them for robbery reasons and to eliminate witnesses. During an interview with filmmaker Nick Broomfield, when she believed the cameras were off, Wuornos disclosed that she had acted in self-defense but could not endure life on death row after a decade and wished to die. Incarceration. Wuornos found herself incarcerated at the Broward Correctional Institution, BCI, a death row facility for women managed by the Florida Department of Corrections. Later, she was moved to the Florida State Prison for her eventual execution. Her plea to the U.S. Supreme Court for reconsideration was turned down in 1996. In 2001, she filed a petition with the Florida Supreme Court expressing her desire to dismiss her legal representation and halt all ongoing appeals. She candidly wrote, "I ended the lives of those men, robbing them with a chilling indifference. I would not hesitate to do it again. There is no reason to keep me alive because I would repeat my actions. A deep-seated hatred courses through me. I am utterly tired of hearing the excuses that I'm insane. I've undergone countless evaluations. I am competent, I am rational, and I am striving to speak the truth. I am someone who genuinely despises human life and would take life once more." Despite claims by her lawyers that she lacked the mental capacity to make such a decision, Wuornos maintained that she fully comprehended her choices, a viewpoint supported by a group of court-appointed psychiatrists. By 2002, Wuornos started accusing prison staff of contaminating her meals with substances like dirt, saliva, and urine. She alleged that she had intercepted discussions among prison personnel who aimed to push her to the point of suicide before her execution and even voiced desires to assault her sexually prior to her death. She also protested against invasive strip searches, tight restraints, disturbances from frequent window checks, insufficient water pressure, the presence of mildew on her mattress, and instances of disrespectful comments and jeering. She threatened to boycott showers and meals during shifts involving specific officers. Wuornos's legal counsel stated that her primary request was for fair and humane treatment until the day of her execution. He added that Miss Wuornos truly believes in what she has expressed. As her execution date drew near, Wuornos granted a series of interviews to documentary filmmaker Nick Broomfield, during which she discussed her anticipation of meeting God, Jesus, and the angels in the afterlife. In her final interview, she reiterated her claims of being mentally tormented during her time at BCI, describing the experience as feeling as if her head was subjected to unbearable sonic pressure. She asserted that her complaints about issues like food poisoning and mistreatment only led to the worsening of her situation, seemingly designed to make her seem insane or drive her to insanity. In a moment of frustration, she directed her anger at her interviewer, accusing him of undermining her cause. "You've sabotaged me, society, the police, the entire system. A woman who was victimized ended up being executed, all for the sake of books and movies." Her final words on camera were a bitter reflection on society. "Thank you very much, society, for unjustly condemning me." One of Wuornos's childhood friends, Dawn Botkins, later conveyed to Broomfield that Wuornos's verbal outbursts were aimed at society and the media in general, not specifically at the filmmaker himself. Death. On October 9, 2002, Wuornos was executed through lethal injection. She chose not to have a last meal exceeding $20 and instead requested a cup of coffee. As her final words, she expressed, "I want to say that I am sailing with the rock, and I'll return, similar to Independence Day, with Jesus. June 6th, like the movie. A massive mothership and all, I'll come back, I'll come back." Her passing occurred at 9:47 a.m. EDT. Her execution marked the second instance of a woman being executed in Florida and the 10th in the United States following the 1976 reinstatement of capital punishment by the Supreme Court. Posthumously, Wuornos's remains underwent cremation, and her ashes found their resting place beneath a tree in her hometown of Michigan, where her childhood friend Dawn Botkins carried out the scattering.